Hello.
Hey, Laura, how you doing today?
Hi, great, Joe. Thank you so much for being here with us. So, all right, creators, welcome, guys. Welcome to Monday for Creators. Today, we're talking about moving your practice online and making more money with Joe Sanok. He is the #1 counselor for counselors, author, and man behind the podcast, Practice of the Practice. So, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is so awesome. You've done such great social media in the lead up to this. I can't wait to hang out with your audience.
Well, we're so excited to have you and learn all about the insights you have for us. So, guys, Joe, you are the host of the popular The Practice of the Practice podcast, and it's recognized as one of the top 50 podcasts worldwide, which is awesome. And you speak with best-selling authors, experts, business leaders, innovators, and now you have an awesome book coming out, which is super exciting. It's called Thursday is the New Friday, and where you help thousands of professionals create the schedule they want, resulting in less work and greater income. So who doesn't love that? I'm so excited to hear about that book. So that comes out later on this year. And we're just so excited to hear all about the insights you have. So Joe, welcome. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, I started as a mental health counselor, was working full-time in a community college and started this side counseling practice just to pay off student loan debt. It really was your typical, you go to college, you get a master's degree, you just kind of follow the typical route. But as I was starting that private practice, I really realized I had no idea what I was doing in business. I didn't know about content marketing. I didn't know about any marketing. To me, marketing and business was my only experience with that was selling vacuum cleaners door to door in college. And it was like slimy and gross and a pyramid scheme. And that's what I thought business was. But then I started reading all these amazing books from really ethical, amazing business leaders, and realizing there was this whole world of people that did business really well. And that, there's something I'm passionate about, which was counseling, and to be able to build a website and do blogs and to start to learn that was just an amazing experience for me personally. And I just had to kind of share that journey and co-learn with an audience. So I started practiceofthepractice.com and started the podcast back in 2012. And I felt like I was late to the game in the podcasting world because there were so many podcasters I really respected at the time. But now in retrospect, I'm glad I started then. And then really just started to connect with people. And I kind of went from being a co-learner to then being able to kind of teach what I was learning. I'm interviewing all of these experts, and I didn't really realize all that I knew when it came to the private practice world. So I'm at this full-time job at the community college, and I have my small private practice on the side. I started doing consulting, and I remember the day I had just signed a lease for a 4-office suite in downtown Traverse City, corner office, view of the bay. This is my side gig, and I have 5 counselors working for me while I still have a full-time job. And I run over there to do a lunch counseling session, and then I go back to the community college, and I'm walking down the stairs to my basement office that has no windows, and I realize I'm making more money off of my private practice and consulting, working like 5 hours a week than I am off my full-time job. And that's when I really started, planning, and it took about a year to get everything in order. But I left that full-time job, and that was back in 2015, and really haven't looked back since. We've done a lot of work with counselors in private practice, but leveled up to help people that want to exit their private practices. We've gone a lot farther beyond just mental health clinicians, where we're helping small businesses and other folks kind of live the life that they want. Instead of just be defined by giving themselves a job through their business, they actually can say, I want to create a business where it matches my lifestyle. It matches what feels good to be with my friends and family and hobbies, while also impacting the world and making a bunch of money.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. So that goes right into the topics we'll be covering today, and which would be recognizing you can make that transition to build your business using online tools. And then, the steps you need to do to take that leap of moving your practice or your business online, finding clients and monetizing. And then, of course, we're going to get into your book, Thursday is the New Friday. So we'll get into business insights from that, because you also do consulting. You're a business consultant basically now. So really excited to talk about all that. I want to mention real quick, we have those joining live with us on the side. So there is a chat and they can ask questions. So I'll try to, if anybody wants to throw out questions for Joe, please do. We'll also have a Q&A at the end. So if it's relevant to what we're talking about, I'm sure Joe and I can throw it in there. And then if not, we'll get to your questions at the end. So Let's jump right in though. So like you said, you were at this point in your life where you were like, wait, maybe I could go fully on my own. And then you also utilize these tools online through your podcast and other online tools to grow your private practice too. Obviously with COVID going on, a lot of people are in this position where they're recognizing they're going to have to make some changes too. So can you give us some insights into those points where people might be able to say, okay, I need to make a change here, or I need to pivot?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's never been a better time to reevaluate everything in life. I mean, we're stuck at home during this pandemic. Things are just starting to open up, but with the vaccine, we don't know. And so there's just a lot of questions I think that we're all wrestling with of, what do I want out of life? Which is one of the biggest questions that we can ask ourselves. But oftentimes it takes, a big pain to crack that open, whether that's a pandemic or a divorce or other things that just, break us open. We then sit there with all of these exposed feelings and say, like, what do I actually want here? And I think that when it comes to our schedule as business owners or as people that have a full-time job that want to leave, asking that question is really important. And having the skills and the steps, though, to realize that so many people have done what you want to do. And the idea that we're just going to do it all on our own, we're going to put it all on our shoulders, you're going to waste so much time and so much energy compared to learning from those who have gone before you. And they have done a lot of things that can really be helpful. So a couple of those things that, we might want to look at is, when you're having conversations with your friends, like, what do you talk about? What are those things that give you so much passion and so much excitement that in reality, you could do that and get paid for it and it would never feel like a job. And I think that's such a great starting point to just look at what are those natural passions and excitements and then start to work from there instead of just saying, I got to find a market and then sell to that market. Like, over the long term, that's not going to really be interesting for you. So, I mean, that's the first step that I would have people really think through.
Definitely. And, it may be if you are in practice and then you cannot no longer see your patients in person, making that realization that, okay, I can utilize the tools online now, that would really be helpful. But so you're just saying, as far as if I'm kind of reevaluating my life in general, I'm thinking, okay, I've been doing this job. I'm not happy in this corporate job, but I love public speaking, say. So kind of say I don't even have I don't have a practice yet. Is there a way I can kind of get started using those online tools right now?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would start to file legal paperwork. So all of those nuts and bolts, like, in most states, it's going to be an LLC. In California, oftentimes it's a S corp. But talking to an attorney or an accountant in your own state, getting those basic things set up to track how much you're giving into the business from your personal. So to make sure that from a tax standpoint, all those nuts and bolts are set up. That's not the fun, sexy side of it, but it's really important. So starting there, then I would say thinking about who is your ideal client. And so when you think about whether you're a counselor or a coach or somebody that wants to go public speak, the broader you are, the worse it's going to be for you. You really want to get particular. So I think about one of my consulting clients, Jessica Tapana. So she is a mental health therapist. She has a group practice, and she realized she's really good at SEO. She was at this conference I host called Slow Down School, where we hang out on Lake Michigan, we go hiking, we relax for a few days, and then we run full tilt towards their business. And so at Slow Down School, like every night, she was just hanging out with these other group practice owners and starting to help them with their SEO. And, within that week, people were going from page 2 to page 1 in Google by just hanging out with Jessica. And they were like, Jessica, you need to start a business now. And she's like, really? How many of you would actually sign up? And half the room was like, I will be your first client. So to be that clear and saying, I'm going to help counseling group practice owners with their SEO. She now makes way more money from that business than from her group counseling practice. And so there are people out there that when you think how many clients you actually need to be successful, it might be 20 or 30. You're not looking at attracting thousands of people to your Instagram or thousands of people to your blog. For most situations, we're talking about how do we attract 20 to 30 people that will pay a rate that equals what you need, and you can do that math. And then really particularly look at what those pains are. So whether it's a podcast or a blog post or an email, we always talk about building the pain and the people, falling in love with the pain and the people before we ever pitch a product. And so we want to understand this audience. We want to talk to that audience. As that grows, we want to jump on phone calls and just ask them, what's this been like for you? So you understand how they talk about their pain. And then through that process of audience building, that product is really going to reveal itself. Because you may go down the line and say, I want to build an e-course. But what if you attract a bunch of people that actually want a membership community? Or, what if they want to have individual counseling or consulting instead of an e-course? Then you're not wasting all that time. So you're understanding your audience first. So I'd say after that, then we're going to want to reinvest that time and energy back into that process so that you can scale up beyond your own time. Most people kind of stop at this point. They get a bunch of counseling clients. They're working 25 hours a week or coaching or whatever it is. It's one-on-one work. If you are sick and you're not making money, that means you have a job. And so people say, I have a small business. But it's like, well, if you go on vacation for a month, are you making money? No, I have to keep doing counseling. Okay, that's a job. You gave yourself a job. Maybe you're paid more, you work less, but that's not a business. And so we want to reinvest into systems, whether that's people that are answering phones or emails or other contractors or other clinicians, or taking your method and then teaching it to other people so that it can be automated beyond your own time.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I love a few things you said there. First of all, I think what you said about being very niche is important. I feel like I've seen it in numerous conversations I've had that people are like, well, I want to be able to do everything or help with everything. And you're saying really stay niche into what your passion is and make it specific to be more successful. So that's
Absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah. And then also, the most important person in the room is the person you're helping, the client, the audience. So really understanding them. But then of course, then leveling up after that. So say, I do want to start a business online, where you mentioned a few different outlets as well. If it's podcasting or email networking, can you kind of give us some insights into where to start there?
Yeah. So, first you want to start with what do you enjoy? Of course, there's tons of opportunity everywhere. But you want to look at where is it most easy? Is your Instagram naturally growing? Is your email list naturally growing? Are you enjoying being on podcasts or doing webinars like this? To just kind of know yourself best, because if you're happy and excited, that's going to be the best work that you do. So no matter what I say about statistics, you want to start with, like, do I even like being on Instagram? If you dread it, like, life's too short to be on Instagram if you hate it. If you love it, be on it. Like, there's plenty of other outlets. So I would just start with that. But when we do look at the stats on podcasting for most online businesses, that's going to be one of the best uses of their time. Let me say who shouldn't be online in regards to podcasting. So if you are a local business that needs to attract local clients, so you're a lawn care business, you're a local counseling business, you're licensed only in your state, just being on podcasts probably isn't the very best use of your time, because it's so regional and you need to be on podcasts that are just about your region. Because if you live in Michigan and then a bunch of people in California start following you and you can't work with them because of a license or just because it's an in-person type of business, that's a huge waste of your time and resources. And you might as well just spend that time networking or doing other things. But for most people, even if they're a counselor, like a lot of my audience is, they want to level up. They want to do speaking. They want to write books. They want to create membership communities. So say my typical client might be working with maybe families going through a divorce. And then, yes, that's in-person work that they're licensed only to do in Michigan. But there's lots of opportunity there to create membership communities, to create e-courses, to write a book, to do public speaking. And that's where a podcast can really help you. And so just when we look at the stats on podcasting, let's just kind of, I need to kind of think visually to understand something. And so if we say, should you write a blog post? Well, there's millions and millions of blogs out there. So statistically, if that's a 6 foot tall person, and then we say, what's the ROI on my time and money in regards to the audience size that I'm competing with to, say, be on YouTube? So, compared, there's about 600 million blog websites out there, 6 foot tall person. There's only about 25 million YouTube channels out there. So that statistical difference is the difference between a 6 foot tall person and King Kong, 104 feet tall. It's a huge difference there in regards to competition. There's not as much competition. There's a bigger audience. There's fewer people that are serving that audience. So next we look at, what about inactive podcasts? Being defined as having a podcast that hasn't had anything launch in the last 90 days. All right, we know that there's about 700,000 to 1 million right now podcasts that are inactive. So that statistical difference is 7 Titanics, bow to stern, 7,000 feet tall, compared to 104 foot King Kong, 6 foot tall blog post. But then when we look at active podcasts, being defined as having posted 1 episode in the last 30 days. So we're not even talking about a weekly podcast. Statistically, that's Mount Everest in regards to how many people are actually creating podcasts. So we're looking at around 100 to 200,000, depending on the stats you look at. So do you want to be Mount Everest and have hardly anyone that you're competing with, and having a gigantic audience? We know 52% of the US population right now actively listens to podcasts, whereas we only have 200,000 or so podcasts that are serving those people. And then if we take those podcasts and zoom into your particular niche, there's hardly anyone that's being served, really, even though it feels like it's a saturated area. And so if you have a national or international message that you think will resonate, right now, it seems like statistically, podcasting is one of the best ways to do that. And we're seeing that all the time in Podcast Launch School, which is one of our products that we offer, one of our e-courses, that people are able to serve when they're at that kind of high niche level and get clients really quickly.
Nice. Yes. I love that. And what do you say? So if you were to say, okay, I think my talents and what my business needs right now is a podcast. Yeah. What's the ways to get started? And then what's the strategies to really grow that from basically nothing to begin with to being successful?
Yeah. So, I mean, you want to first look at what sort of audience do you already have built? So do you have even a small Instagram following? Do you have a small email list? Do you have a small Facebook group? Engage that audience with the behind the scenes, because they're going to be like a street team that's going to be able to help promote it when it goes out there. Because most people aren't starting from complete scratch. They probably have some sort of following, even if it's friends and family.
A few friends,
yeah. But those friends want to see you be successful. I mean, it's like your own sister was promoting this, and it's like, that's great. You know, friends and family are like, yes, go get it. Way to go, Laura. That's awesome. Right. They're going to be some of your biggest advocates when you first get going. So then, once you look at kind of what you already have, if you're starting a podcast, the first thing you want to think about is what's my core message? What is the core pillars here? And when I'm doing consulting or in Podcast Launch School, we walk through this. So your first 5 episodes, you want to see that as really being the pillars that the rest of the podcast stands on. And so if you were to drill down and say, okay, I'm looking at this particular niche, I'm helping this pain and these people before I ever pitch a product, what are kind of the 5 things that I need to do solo episodes on? Now, on day 1 of you launching the podcast, you want to release all 5 of those podcasts so that if someone loves episode 1, they're going to binge listen through episode 5 and they're going to be addicted to it. And iTunes, which is the primary way that people listen to podcasts still, is going to love that. They're going to see all these listens on day 1, and that's going to really help with your stats and getting into new and noteworthy. So you do those first 5. Then I usually suggest that you do 5 episodes that are interviews with experts that kind of you have no business talking to, or that are filling in the gaps, so that you then immediately become aligned with those experts. So say you want to talk about a particular type of online marketing. So say, for example, you wanted to do a podcast that's going to help grow your audience in these webinars. And then you would look at, okay, who else is doing webinars like this that maybe has some information that I don't have as much info on. And so having 5 experts that you surround yourself with in those first 5 episodes to say, okay, they're a step or 2 ahead of me, and they're adding some legitimacy to this podcast. So then the next 5 episodes, we're going to want to do live consulting. And so what this looks like is wherever you're headed. So say part of, Laura, your coaching is you want to help coach people on how to do these kind of webinars. So then doing 5 live coaching with your audience that you have, and maybe it's just you reach out to friends and family and say, hey, do you want to do a coaching call where I teach you how to do live webinars? We talk about Webinar Jam, and I teach you all these things, and it's just to demonstrate my skills as a consultant, but also to give great skills to the audience. So what that does in those first 15 episodes is first it shows that you have something to say individually. Too often people will just interview, and then you never see them as a consultant. You never see them as anything other than just someone that's interviewing. You want to be able to have your own message be core to your podcast. Secondly, it surrounds you and gives you legitimacy around other experts, showing that you are aligned with these people, even if maybe you feel like you're a few steps behind them. And then third, you're demonstrating those skills in person in these live consulting calls. And so by doing that, it really sets you up. But then also you're figuring out for yourself, what do you like more? Are solo shows super easy for you? Well, then maybe you do more solo shows. Are interviews super easy for you? Well, then do more of those. Where do you get the ROI in regards to your own kind of clients that you're getting? So those first 15 episodes, if you sketch it out in that way, it really positions you differently than just buying a microphone and starting to talk into it.
Definitely. Do you think there's a sweet spot for the time of podcasts?
Yeah, so statistically right now, they say the average podcast is about 45 minutes long. But I would argue that shows like the Joe Rogan Experience that are like 3 hours long, because he's high with his clients oftentimes, or guests, and then it's like they just go on and on. I do think that like those kind of shows sway the numbers. I do think if we think about kind of the average TV episode or sitcom of 25 minutes, I think that's a sweet spot where you think about the average person, if they're commuting or, driving to the grocery store, they can drive to the grocery store, listen to 15 minutes and then drive back in 15 minutes. And, they're not kind of leaving that podcast just hanging out there and making it feel like a to-do list item. I would rather people do 2 25-minute episodes to get twice the downloads than to do one 1 hour episode.
Interesting. Okay, I love that. And then once you have that, do you suggest like once a week, a podcast once a week after those initial ones?
Yeah, I mean, I think for most people, for them to know to expect it have a specific day, a specific time weekly. For a while, I just kind of launched them whenever. And then I think it was 2014, I started going every single week on Tuesday mornings at 6 a.m. Eastern. And the numbers just went through the roof because people could expect it. They knew every Tuesday morning their commute at that time, obviously COVID wasn't going on. It was just a lot easier for them to know what to expect.
Yes, definitely. And then once you have a little bit of momentum, how do you suggest to begin to monetize?
Yeah, so I think, a couple numbers that you want to have. So one thing we didn't talk about is having a very clear email course that you have people opt into.
Okay.
And so having a 10-part email course, the quick structure would be the first 3 emails are really defining the problem and how your client was set up for failure. And so what in society has set people up to not know what you know. So you're normalizing the pain they feel inside so they haven't personalized it. Second, in the next 3 emails, we want to give them quick wins. So this week, you're going to do this one thing and you're going to see these kind of results. It's like a 5 to 10 minute exercise. It could be a mindset. It could be something else. And then the third set of 3 emails is you want to have kind of long-term goals. So if you're going to be successful long-term, here's some habits you have to do all the time. So you're really creating a sense of you're the expert. You walk them through this. It's not just jump onto my newsletter. It's, you're actually helping them do something through an email course. And then you take all of that and in email 1, before you get to those 3 sets of 3, is you have a handbook that you give out. Not just a quick checklist, not just a quick opt-in. People want content. We're past the information age and we're now in the implementation age. There's more than enough information out there. People can go on YouTube and sit there for 5 hours and learn how to do something, or they can come to you and in 20 minutes, you bring together the best content and then they follow you forever. And so you really want to have a robust email list or email course that people are opting into. So a couple numbers to your question is you want to probably have at least 100 people or so on your email list so that you can get a good sense of what they think, believe, what their pains are. If you have 20, the first 5 or 10 might already know you. It might be your mom or somebody like that. But it's like, let's get at least 100 people on the email list before we start doing some surveys around the product. And then we probably want 500 to 1,000 listens per episode as well to be able to have some steam behind the podcast. So after that, what I usually recommend is that people send an email to their list. And then we have this 3 questions to ask formula that we break down in Podcast Launch School. So you email your list and you have a scheduling link in there, like Calendly, so it's automated, so you're not going back and forth with people. And you say something like this, hey, Laura, I know you joined this email course because you want to solve whatever problems you want to solve. You want to solve the problem of how to get more people onto your webinar. I'm doing some phone calls with people to learn more about this pain. This is not a sales call. It's literally just to understand the pain more because we're looking at launching some products and we don't want to waste our time or yours to launch products that you don't want. And so would you take 15 minutes to jump on a quick phone call with me so I can ask you just a couple questions? So then when you're on that phone call, the first question you ask is around the pain. So what's it been like to run a webinar, to do it every Monday? You're waking up, you're excited. Do you feel like, man, I wish there could be more people on here? We get so many people, we don't know what to do with them. So then I have you describe that pain. Second, I then reflect back that pain. So you said in question 1, here's the things that are kind of tough for you. If there was a magical product that solved that, what would that look like? Would it be a membership community of other people hosting webinars? Would it be an e-course? Would it be individual coaching? Is it something else? Sketch that out for me. And then third, what's the price you would pay for that? And so what you find out here before you ever launch a product is, first I have some awesome copy from 20 or so of my ideal clients saying, here's how I describe my pain. I'm going to now use that on a landing page. Secondly, they've sketched out the product. When we did this for Next Level Practice, which is our membership community for people that are starting and growing a private practice, I had thought, okay, we have a $17 product. Probably the step up would be like a $20 a month product. But I went through this process and everybody was like, our magical product would have small groups and accountability and ongoing experts. And they just created this whole robust kind of community. And I'm thinking, I can't do that for $20 a month. But then when I got to question 3 and said, how much would you pay for that? And they said, if I could get 1 client a month that came once and whatever I charge for that, like $100 a month, I'd probably pay that. So I then made 5 times as much money as what I was planning to do. I was planning to charge $20 a month, but just by having some phone calls, I'm now getting $100 per month per person in this membership community. So then when you do that, Then you can set up an early opt-in, which again tests it before you build anything. Okay, on this date, we're going to be launching our new membership community that's all for content creators that are doing webinars. And so you have an opt-in and you send that out to your 100 or 500 or 1,000 person email list. And then if you get 2 people to opt in for that early opt-in and you've said it's going to cost this much, now you saved yourself a bunch of time and you realize you got a bunch of cheapskates that you missed the mark and they don't want to buy it. Whereas if you get 100 people, okay, those 100 people, you might sell 30 or 40 of this product, and now it's actually worth it. And then you do your actual early opt-in payment. So this is where the rubber really hits the road, where people pull out their credit cards and are buying into whatever this new product is. And so by doing that, now you really have tested it before you've ever put in any time. And you're disclosing all of this, saying to these people, okay, you're the first group, you are the beta test group, you're our early access. Over the next 2 months, we're going to work together to create your ideal membership community, your ideal e-course. We're going to have some Zoom calls so that you share with us all the problems you want us to cover in round 1. And we're going to try to make this exactly what you want because you're our early adopters. So you get 30 people that each drop $1,000 for this e-course, and you jump on some Zoom calls, and for 2 months you create the exact course that they want or the exact membership community, and they say, "Holy cow! For $1,000, I just got exactly what I needed." That implementation is insane. So now you then have worked out all the kinks with these people, and now you can launch big. Now you can say, "Okay, we're going to put some ad spend into this. We're going to take this money we have in hand. We now haven't wasted our time, and we actually are able to launch something that works and that we've tested."
Yeah, I love that. That is, I also love your background as a counselor and just understanding your customer so much more to then put the correct business implementations. So I know you said you didn't understand, you weren't taught business, but you're using all your teachings to really even take business that much further. So I love what you're saying there too, as far as like where to start. This is going to sound a little juvenile of a question, but if I'm thinking it, maybe other people are too. You mentioned those getting the emails. Is that through just like a website where people then opt in and they can?
No, that's a great question.
Okay.
So there's tons of different automated email sequence platforms. We use Aweber. If people want to use it, they get a discount at practicethepractice.com/Aweber, AWEBER. But there's things like MailChimp, Asana. There's all sorts of email services. So what's nice is you create this 10-part email series. If you opt in today, you get email 1. Say 3 weeks from now, you're on email 4. If I see we have Jan, so Jan's watching. If Jan opts in today, she gets email 1. And so over at Podcast Launch School, we have a 10-part email series about launching a podcast, totally free. It's this whole email course to figure out whether you should even do a podcast. And so by doing that, then whenever someone jumps in, they're at a different sequence within there. And so we see that list then builds, and it feels personal because it has the code where it says, "Hey, Laura, blah, 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 blah," all this stuff. And then you're able to make it feel personal rather than you having to send out emails every single week. You're wasting all your time with it. Not juvenile at all.
Okay, good. All right. Well, so I love what you're saying about putting the products out there. Yeah, Jan has also said you use Clubhouse already. So do you use other forms of social media too, including Clubhouse?
Yeah, I think Clubhouse is one of the best, if not the best platform right now for content creators. Actually, every Tuesday at noon Pacific, Podcast Magazine, I'm one of their regular Clubhousers. So Club Pod is the club that's within there. So feel free to join Club Pod every Tuesday at noon. I am doing live consulting questions. We're talking about all sorts of different things. So yeah, I think if you don't know what Clubhouse is, if you kind of picture back when we had conferences, when you have a breakout room at a conference and you go and there's a panel in one room and there's 4, say, people talking about marketing. And then in another room, there's one person that's talking about email lists. And then in another room, there's 2 people that are having a debate about something. Clubhouse is sort of like all of those breakout rooms in a lot of different topics. There's a lot of business and marketing, but then there's also, people on the paleo diet or, gamers that love certain video. I'm not a gamer, so I can't even name video games. But it's like there's these little clubs that have rooms that you go into. And, Club Pod, we usually have 200 to 300 people in each of those. I think we have 40,000 members now in that club. And so there's a lot of robust things. I cover all of the art and business of podcasting. It is kind of my show. But yeah, Clubhouse is amazing. I think it's a great way to build an audience. I would not put all of your time into any social media because you want to own your content. And so if you have a podcast, then you own that content. If you have an email list, you own that email list. And so say Clubhouse comes in and out of style. Say a month from now, Facebook creates the same version of Clubhouse within Facebook. And then everyone leaves Clubhouse and goes to Facebook. And you put all of your eggs in that basket. If that's the only place that you are, then you die and you also thrive within that area. So you look at Facebook, you've built up this whole page or this whole community, and then Facebook decides if you want to reach your own community that you've built within there, you have to pay to reach them. Like if all of your eggs are in that basket, that's really tough to grow a business compared to if you really build things that you have the full or mostly full control over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that would be similar items, what you were talking about with offering like an e-course or those services that your audience is saying they want. And I love how you said too, it's not just content anymore. It's like actual steps of the implementation too.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I think looking at your ideal client's journey. So if I think about practice the practice, at the very beginning, we have counselors that are just getting started. Maybe they're just out of grad school or they have a full-time job. They don't have a lot of money, but they have time. They want to listen to content. So we have a ton of free content. I'd say 90% of what we offer is totally free. The next step up is we have the 1-year practice plan. So it's a weekly email. People pay $17 for it. They can email walking them through over a whole year how to start a private practice. It's for the people that they'll pay one time $17, but then they get this guidance, but they're putting in that hustle. So then the next step is for people that say, I want to invest a little bit more. I want to save myself some time and money. And that's where we have Next Level Practice, our membership community. We've got over 300 people paying around $100 a month to be in that community. And so it's a little higher touch, but not super high touch. For $100 a month, you're not going to get one-on-one consulting. So then the next step up is we have a whole bunch of mastermind groups that are run by my consultants. There are groups of 8 or so people. We also have Group Practice Boss, which is another membership community for people that own group practices. So then above that, we've got one-on-one consulting with either myself or with one of our consultants. So that's $1,000 to $3,000 a month, depending on if you're working with me or somebody else. So then now we're getting higher touch, higher cost. And then we move into when people are exiting, we have all of our podcasting materials. So we've got our e-course, Podcast Launch School. So that's $1,000. Up from there is we have consulting with me plus the e-course. So a little bit of touch, like a 45-minute call. That's going to be $1,500 a month. And then we have full on done for you podcasting. That's around $20,000 to help someone over a 9-month period of time, start to finish, paint by number, start your podcast. And so when you think about it that way of saying, okay, what's the upsell and what's the downsell for my service? So even if you're a regular counselor with online counseling, saying, okay, say someone doesn't need counseling with you and you're helping marriages. Well, maybe there's an e-course opportunity there that for $200, it's a revitalize your relationship. And you start an e-course that you can downsell people into. Well, what's the upsell if someone say, I can do counseling, but I think I need something more intense. I need like an intensive where we fly in and work with you, or we do it online because of COVID or whatever. Okay, what's that look like if someone wanted to work with you 20 hours in 1 week? Do you have a product that is that more intense thing? So if you're always looking at what's the upsell, what's the downsell, where's my audience at, then the products start to emerge, out of that instead of you just guessing.
Yeah, definitely. And so that's definitely a theme of your book as well, right? Is just also the leveling up and continuously providing greater value. So do you want to jump into your book then, or do you want to talk about okay, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your book, and then I'll ask that other question at the end because I've got a different question for you too.
Sounds good. Yeah. So in Thursday is the New Friday, I really started with thinking about how do we define time? Like, where did our concept of time come from? I think it's important to look at a little bit of the history of it. Even the 7-day work week or 7-day week, that's totally made up by the Babylonians. The Babylonians thought there was 7 celestial beings, and they said, let's have 7-day weeks. There's nothing in nature that says 7 days. The Egyptians had an 8-day week. The Romans had a 10-day week. It's completely arbitrary. And up until the 1800s, most people worked 6 to 7 days a week, 10 to 14 hours a day. And so nonstop work. And then in 1926, on May Day, Henry Ford decided that he was going to switch to the 40-hour work week across the board, which the ripple effect across the United States, it changed everything. So now the 40-hour work week within just a couple of years became the standard. We had weekends, all that. So it's less than 100 years old is this 40-hour work week. It was a great step for the evolution of humanity and the evolution of work to move to that. but it was literally Henry Ford just saying 40 hours seems like the best efficiency. So people he really wanted to have his own people have time and space to buy cars from his own company so they could have leisure on the weekends. It was to sell more cars to his own company. So less than 100 years ago, this 40-hour work week starts. So for us, it feels super normal. But what we've been seeing, since the kind of early 80s is the movement away from a 5-day work week. I mean, I don't know, if you remember the whole TGIF on Fridays with Full House and all of that, but it's like Fridays became this sort of like half day. It's when we had birthday parties at work. It's when we, slack off a little bit. If we're going to do a team building thing, it's not going to be on a Monday. It's going to be on a Friday. And so Fridays have already been kind of fading out from the consciousness of the business world. And then COVID hits. And everybody right now is reinventing their schedule. They've realized that this 40-hour work week, I can get most of that done in less than that. Or I'm so stressed out because my boss wants me to sit through all these stupid Zoom meetings just to look busy. They have that old school mentality of butts in chairs instead of really defining what we're doing. So as we start to look at the 4-day work week, we actually see the research and case studies and science actually proves that we can get more done in 4 days. We can make more money and live the lifestyle we want. So one important case study was at Kalamazoo Valley Community College. So I interviewed this guy. He's an HVAC instructor, and he's also like the lead, I don't want to call him janitor, but like maintenance services guy at this community college. And so he started noticing how HVAC systems work at a community college. It's not like a house where you turn on the heat and the cold. You're heating entire buildings. And so if you heat it, it's going to heat, for the whole weekend. So we started tracking in the summer how many people were actually in the parking lot and in the buildings on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so he tracked this for a year. And then he presented to the board and said, if we did a 4-day work week in the summer, the amount we would just save on AC would be millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. So for years, they've been doing a 4-day work week in the summer. Their staff are more productive in the summer. They're happier. They stay longer, and they're saving millions of dollars just with their HVAC system. And these kind of case studies are all over the place, where we see that a 4-day work week is really kind of the defining evolutionary step for the business world. And in this book, I really unpack kind of what that looks like for individuals, but also for businesses. Nice.
That's very interesting. And I like how you also mentioned if you have less time to get things done, you almost get more done. Can you talk about that kind of idea in the work week?
Yeah, so there's this guy, his name's Parkinson's. So Parkinson's law is the idea, it's not the idea, it's the theory that work expands to the time given. And so he noticed, all these different things kind of in the military that as they were given bigger budgets, they bought more ships and all these other things. And when you look at this, it's absolutely true. If you are in college and you have a paper due tomorrow morning, do you get that paper done in less than a day? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah.
You stay up all night, you get it done. You rock that thing out and you're productive. If you know it's due in 3 weeks, how long is it going to take you? 3 weeks.
Yeah.
and so when we start to say, I'm going to give myself less time to do something, whether that's by setting timers when you're writing a blog post or however you want to do that, giving yourself fewer days, what happens is those 30 things that are on your to-do list, you start to evaluate, okay, what's the top 10 things, the top 5 things I need to do? The most important things naturally rise to the top. And then where do you drop the ball? Those least important things. And so even though you're dropping the ball, you start to realize, okay, these things are not the best use of my time and energy. And I need to hand these off to somebody else. I need to automate it. I need to eliminate it. I need to just get rid of it in some fashion from the way that I'm doing work. So what do you start to do over time when you give yourself 4 days instead of 5, or you give yourself half an hour instead of an hour, is you then start to do your very best work all the time. And then that compounds upon itself over and over, while the piddly work you're able to outsource or just get rid of.
Interesting. Yes, for sure. Also the idea of time too. You had mentioned the girl who started the SEO business, and you said that was part of what was that part of, like a chill out week or something?
Yeah. So, I think the formula we talk about in the book, but that also
is I
live is no, it's exactly the same.
Oh,
so
okay.
we have Slowdown School, which is our it's like an adult summer camp where we also work on business. So for 2 days, we go hiking, we bring in massage therapists, we have yoga teachers at Slowdown School. And then for 2.5 days, we run full tilt towards their business. So the formula of slowing down and killing it is absolutely what happens. We also have an event called Killing It Camp. So we do Slowdown School in the summer, Killing It Camp in the fall. And the research and the neuroscience behind it is that we do our best work not when we're stressed out and maxed out and kind of backed into the corner. Most people will run full tilt for the week and then they'll just like die on the weekend and they'll sleep in and they'll drink and they'll overeat. And then on Monday, they feel like crap and then they do it all over again. Instead, we flip it where we start with slowing down. We start with allowing ourselves to just be creative and to have that time. Our brains are then optimized and ready for Monday and excited for the work we're going to do. And then from there, we run full tilt within that limited schedule, doing our best work possible, getting rid of all the other things that are just piddly, and then we slow down again. And so by doing that formula of slow down, killing it, it allows us to have these sprints where we get our very best work done. So for me to do something like this is really good, to be exposed to a new audience and to come full tilt and ready. But before this, I spent 2 hours meditating. I also read a book, I journaled, I did a 3-minute plank, I did a bunch of push-ups, I went for a walk and listened to music that makes me happy. So that when I show up for you, Laura, I'm ready to go. I'm like, I've already killed it. Not that I don't care how this goes, but I feel great about the day. But then that makes the content that I give you so much better than if I just rolled out of bed and I was hungover and I felt like crap and I'm like, oh shoot, it's Monday morning. Like that's a much different posture coming into really important work than if I take that time to slow down, center myself, feel grounded, and then enter into this and being able to give my best content.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, as a creative professional myself, I find that if I'm working out or giving myself like that space to kind of chill out, I do have so many better ideas that come to me rather than just doing something to like be busy and feel productive. So that's a really interesting concept, but I can definitely see how you're giving yourself that space to allow yourself to be, and then you can have these great ideas and feel energized about them when you go to implement them. So I think
intuitively we know that. I mean, whether it's, you're in the shower and you're like, oh, I have all these ideas, or you're on a long drive and you decide to just listen to music or just turn off the music. Like your best ideas usually come when you've allowed yourself to slow down, when you've allowed yourself to go for a walk. And then because you've given yourself a limited amount of time to do your best work, you could run full tilt towards those ideas because you know it's your best work.
Mm-hmm. So would you say those are some of the strategies you feel the most strongly about in Thursday is the New Friday, is really allowing yourself to have that space to get those ideas and then come at them with energy once you're sitting down to actually implement them? So is that like what you feel the most strongly about in the book?
Yeah, so in part 1 of the book, we look at your internal inclinations. So our internal inclinations, we look at 3 major ones. One of them is curiosity. And so in each of these sections, there's an assessment where you're able to say to yourself, is curiosity, for example, is that a natural inclination? Like I'm naturally curious, or is it something that needs some developing? And then we look at, are there habits that support that, and are there actions to support it? So for each one of these internal inclinations, we look at, like, is curiosity natural or is it developing? Do I have actions to support it or not? And is it a habit or not? And so, for example, with curiosity, we've found that top business leaders tend to have a natural or developing version of curiosity. They actively try to develop curiosity. They don't just try to have the eureka moment, but really the central question that they say is, well, that's interesting. Like, why is that? Instead of saying it's kind of pass fail, it's okay, we just had this happen. That's interesting that it happens. It's interesting that we just spent $2,000 on this Facebook ad campaign and 0 people clicked on it. Like, what's going on here? So they have this posture of learning all the time. And so we go through your internal inclinations. Then in the second part, we really look at the brain science behind slowing down. And so you have a lot of activities in there, as well as case studies and research, where we're able to look at how slowing down actually speeds things up. So I think about this one guy, Michael Glavin, who was at Slow Down School. So again, we had slowed down for 2 days. We had been really like relaxing, skipping stones on Lake Michigan and day drinking on the beach and just like enjoying ourselves. Day 1, it's really hard for people oftentimes, and they're really anxious and feel like they want to get things done. Day 2, it's like they wake up and they've just shed the stress and they're just so happy. And then day 3, we dive in. So Michael, we're doing this 20-minute sprint. And I kind of walk people through how to do this on their own in the book. But we do this 20-minute sprint that we set him up for. For months, I've been following Michael in a mastermind group, encouraging him to outline this book. He's really good with couples. He has a whole process he's created that's unique. Like, he needs to write a book and he wants to write a book. but there's been a block for him for months. So at Slowdown School, everyone kind of goes outside, they find a spot with their journal or their computer to just get some work done for 20 minutes. Then they're going to come back and report out. In 20 minutes, Michael sketches out the first 8 chapters of his book. 8 chapters of a book just floods in.
Yeah.
And it's just like pouring out of him. He gets his brain into a flow state. And that's really what we're looking at, is flow states. Because he wasn't stressed out. He didn't have all of that internal stuff going on that's saying you can't do this or whatever was going on in his brain. That slowing down actually allowed him to kill it. And that's the last section. We talked about after you've allowed your brain to be optimized, then what are some activities for you to evaluate your business, evaluate your time, to really walk through how are you leveling up your life in those moments. So if we're going to give ourselves 4 days a week, if we're going to limit our schedule, we want to be able to make sure that we actually do amazing things during those 4 days and outsource everything else.
Interesting. No, I love that. I have a question for you. What would you say to somebody who felt like they have a responsibility to, say, clients or to answering emails and they think, I can't take 3 days away?
Yeah, I mean, right now that might be true. Like, I have no doubt that there are certain occupations this won't work for. We need ambulance drivers 24/7. So I get it. And I think that those people don't have to stay stuck in that. So one of the things we talk about is moving from one to many. So if you have clients all the time, you're doing individual counseling, you're individual coaching, individual consulting, great. There's a number of ways that we can look at improving your situation. So just one of them, raising your rates. So if you're charging $150 a session and you have an average of 10 people every single week, $1,500 a week. Well, if you charge, $150, $200, $250, if you're that full and people want to see you that much, you could raise your rates. Mm-hmm. We could also look at, well, what if you had a group of 10 people that paid $50 a month for, an hour or 2 hours of your time? Okay, we've now gone from all this one-on-one to now having some group model. Is there a chance for a membership community or something that's more automated, like an e-course? So again, we go back to those things that are a little more automated and maybe take us a little less time, but then increase that revenue. I would also say for most of those people, if they just saw one more client, they could probably pay somebody $15 an hour to be checking their email, answering their phone calls, responding on social media. The amount that you can outsource now is just unbelievable. And so say you're a typical counselor charging $150 an hour, with taxes and fees, you're going to buy yourself, 8 to 10 hours for that 1 hour. And so then you can start to outsource things, not just in your professional life, but also in your personal life. So if you hate doing laundry and that drains the crap out of you, or you hate mowing your lawn or snow blowing, is it worth it for you who can make $150 an hour to be snow blowing and feel like your whole weekend is shot when you could pay somebody $35 to just, plow your driveway? Giving yourself permission to do the work that you want to do, it is more of an internal job of allowing yourself to say, I trust in what I'm really good at so much more than worrying about society. So yes, as a typical white male, I've been taught, yes, you should mow your lawn, you should keep your house up, you should snow blow, you should do all these things. But you know what? I haven't mowed my lawn in like 4 years and it's glorious. And the kid next door loves mowing the lawn and making that money. And so I have my weekends back and he's making money for college.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. That's so great. And as you're talking about kind of leveling up and we're talking about, building an online business, that goes back to my other question as far as like, if you're going to create an e-course or some sort of course that you can provide and not necessarily always have to be there to say coach or have a counseling session with. So what are some of your favorite platforms for that, like teachable.com? Like, how would I go about doing this e-course? Where are the best platforms for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, if you're going to test it out first, what you can do is you can do some live webinars with that first beta test group and have that be the original content for your course. And then from there, you can build it out. You can build out PDFs. You can have people transcribe it. You don't have to do all of that work. So if you do, say, 2 60-minute e-courses every month for 6 months, now you have a 12-part course that then you can have somebody go through and transcribe it, create beautiful PDFs and downloads, and put that into whichever platform you want. So I would say make it easy on yourself first and foremost. Don't put in too much time and money before you actually have paying clients. And then I don't really think platform matters as much. I mean, there's some great platforms out there, and there's more emerging all the time. We use Teachable because they integrate so well with Zapier, which then integrates with our email service provider. But you just want to look at which things kind of work best for you. I've heard really good things about Udemy and other places like that. But I think that examining them. So for example, when we started Next Level Practice, which is our membership community, when we had our beta test group, we went through 9 different webinar platforms in 1 month. Now, in most membership communities, people would leave. They'd say, oh my gosh, get your crap together. Like, I can't believe you went through 9 of these in a month. I mean, we were on one of them and it didn't work with iPads. And they were just like, sorry, it doesn't work on iPads. I'm like, well, for one, you should tell us that so we can tell our people that, so they're not trying to log on and think that they have a problem. And 2, that's just terrible. Like, why doesn't it work on an iPad? But the way we framed it with our beta group was, instead of coming in at $99 a month, which is the amount we're going to charge, you're going to be locked in at $55 a month. But part of that is you giving us feedback on what's working, what you want, what you hate, what needs changes. And we are going to screw up over and over, especially in the first couple months. So the amount of grace that original 70 people gave us was, we're a part of this process. We're in this together. We're going to tell you what you're doing wrong, and we're going to stick around to make this better. Mm-hmm. And so we lost hardly anyone. I think we lost a couple people, but it was mostly because of family issues, or they decided not to do a practice. And so then when we finally landed on what we used for our webinars, it felt like, okay, we've landed on it. They all had buy-in because they had been a part of the decision. And then your audience is helping develop it with you. You're not going solo or all on your own. We frequently say that, Joe doesn't have the corner on content. Like, we are stronger as a community together, and that's absolutely true in everything we do. And so I would say working with your audience and then testing it out and making sure they know that you're testing it out, that's going to be more important than locking into, I'm just going to use Teachable, or I'm just going to use Udemy.
Okay, great. All right, well, as we're wrapping up here, if anybody who's joined us wants to ask Joe a question, or Joe, if you have any other thoughts that we haven't yet hit, anything that you want to wrap up with us here today too.
Yeah, I mean, as we're waiting for questions to come in, I think the big thing that most content creators underestimate is their own power. If you have a master's degree, there's only 8% of the US that has master's degrees. So in most situations, you're the smartest person in the room with your particular niche. That's probably true with people that don't have master's degrees too. I mean, if you look at statistically who's had the experiences you've had. So Laura, I don't know much about your life, but I imagine there's particular things that have happened to you, struggles in your life. I imagine that there's things you've tried that you failed at. I imagine there's things that you've been really successful with that make you uniquely you. And so in most situations, when you're talking about your niche, Laura, you're probably the smartest person in the room around all those topics because the way that you've come together as a person is uniquely you. And that's true of Jan or all the other people that are joining us, that you have such unique points of view that to believe in your own power, to me, is one of the most important lessons that you can take away. Because imposter syndrome is real. We all are like, who am I to do this? Whenever I interview big people, like I'm talking to Pat Flynn next week, and I just talked to John Lee Dumas. These people I've respected for years. They have enormous podcasts and followings. It's like, oh my gosh, who am I to be doing this? But then it's like, you know what? I know a bunch of counselors. I know how to apply this. And, I don't need to be the Pat Flynn. But being around Pat Flynn is super cool. But it's like, we have big things to say and we have unique perspectives. I think the other thing I would encourage people to do is to take a stand on things you really care about. So if you care about something and you articulate it, you're going to push people away. And that's really good to push people away. Because I would much rather have people see something on Instagram and be following you, Laura, and say, I hate what she just said. That's so not me. Like, save yourself the time and energy and have them not follow you from the beginning because you're being your authentic self, rather than get down the line and be like, oh my gosh, I thought Laura was this way. And she has this image and this and that. That's not who she is. I can't believe she used that naughty word or whatever. It's like, be yourself from the beginning. Be authentically you, so that you push people away, but then you also attract the people that really want to follow your work.
Yeah, definitely. And you're standing for something and being something. So I can see how that would definitely pull people towards you and push the ones away that you don't, that aren't going to be your people. Right. So. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love the idea with your book that you were saying, just as far as my own personal comments go, is just giving yourself permission to be okay with allowing yourself to believing yourself and giving yourself that grace of like, you don't have to necessarily do this, this, and this, like go where your heart takes you and who you are. And so I can't wait for your book to come out and read it.
Yeah. So pre-release is going to be released this summer 2021. So Thursday is the new Friday.com is where it'll have all the links to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever fine books are sold. It's through HarperCollins, so they're going to be doing a whole bunch of promo. And then the hardcover releases October 5th. And so, we're just getting all the pre-release. We're going to have a bunch of bulk order deals and promotions through Thursday is the new Friday this summer. So, look out for that website. That should be up sometime in the coming months here.
Okay, great. And let people know where else they can find you on Instagram and where you can access your podcast.
Yeah, so Practice of the Practice is where we're at. So practiceofthepractice.com, Practice of the Practice on Instagram. That's where I'm most active, is on Instagram, and also a little bit on Facebook. And so whatever iTunes or Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, just search Practice of the Practice and you'll find it there. We also have a whole network of 14 podcasts that we also produce. And so if you just go to practiceofthepractice.com/network, we have all sorts of interesting mental health podcasts. We have like the Empowered and Unapologetic podcast that's aimed at women in midlife transformations. We have the Bomb Mom podcast, which is all around fitness and working out. And so we have a bunch of amazing podcasters over at practiceofthepractice.com/network if you're looking for some new podcasts.
And can they access your e-courses and other services on your website as well?
Yeah, so actually, Jess, my director of details, there's a little pop-up in the bottom right that says chat with us. So you can just go there and say, hey, I'm looking for this. If you want to get access to any of our podcasting resources, that's all over at podcastlaunchschool.com. And so we have a free e-course there. If people are starting a practice, they can go to practiceofthepractice.com/start. And then we have a 28-step checklist, as well as I think we have 46 emails that will walk you through totally free. If you're growing a practice where you're adding people to your practice and kind of leveling up, you're not in that startup phase, you can go to practiceofthepractice.com/grow. If you're ever just wondering what to do, just email me, joe@practiceofthepractice.com, and I or my director of details will email you back.
Joe, I love that. Thank you so much. We've really learned so much. I know I have. I know our audience did. So thank you so much for joining us. It's just very impressive of all the business you've built and all the insights you have. So I really appreciate you joining us here today. And again, excited to read your book. So thanks everybody for joining us here today. Join us again next Monday for our Monday for Creators. We're going to be speaking to actorceo.com, Mike Moreno. So he'll be giving us some really great insights too. And go get Joe's book. And Joe, thank you so much. And you guys can follow me on Instagram as well at Lou, LOUPOPO999 for just some fun content and good stuff and promotions of what For Creators is up to. So thank you again, Joe. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Bye.